So the Special Investigating Unit and Transnet have filed a 2.8 billion rand lawsuit against Nedbank over interest rate swap transactions that occurred nearly a decade ago. The Nedbank intends to defend its interest in the litigation. If the SIU and Transnet win, it will wipe out almost 20% of the bank's earnings. Nedbank denies the SIU and the state-owned freight and logistic groups claim that it profited from the exchanges. Let's now get a sense of how these interest rate swap transactions happened with the former Trillian Financial Advisory CEO, author and whistleblower, Mosilo, Mothepu, who's joining us. Mosilo, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. I don't know what your reflections are on this decision that has now been taken, of course, by Transnet, but also being supported by the SIU to claim that over 2 billion rand from Nedbank.
Good morning, Aldrin, and good morning to your viewers. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, these interest rates emanate from the financing of the 1064 locomotives. So I was at Regiment's Capital and I raised a 12 billion rand club loan. So, and it was with various banks, Absa, Barclays, and Future Growth. So it's like a syndicate of banks, and we raised a total of 12 billion rand in November at a floating rate. Floating rate means that when the interest rates go up or down, whether it's prime or JAVA, then your interest rate will adjust. So what Regiments and Trillian used to do, because you make a decision when you are with your lender, they would always choose a floating and variable rate. And then within a week, they would swap, do an interest rate swap to fix. Now that makes sense when you think that the interest rates are going to go up. But when the interest rates go down, it's a problem because you're going to be out of the money. So what Transnet is alleging is that Nedbank, alongside Moss Brickman, they unduly profited 2.8 billion rand for these transactions. So, and these interest rate swaps, just to educate the public. So just like your house you pay off over 20 years, it's floating. It's linked to prime. So every time prime goes up, your interest goes up and your installments go up. But when prime goes down, your installments go down. But if you fix now at these interest rates, which are very high, and then you fix for the term of your loan of 20 years, it means you're going to be out of the money because now we're at a reducing interest rate cycle. So what was controversial about this is that Nedbank paid Regiments and Trillian directly. So it did not come from the balance sheet and income statement of Transnet. And this has happened even before the 12 billion rand club loan. The first time I worked from Regiments, from 2007 to 2010, we were lead managers and we raised 5.5 billion rand for the airports company in preparation of the World Cup. And that 5.5, I think Nedbank had given us 1.5 billion, the DBSA was in, and the China Construction Bank. And it was the same operandi. The treasurer was Petulora Musibudi, and what Eric would do would choose a floating rate, and then within a week he will fix.
And Eric Wood, of course, is from, in this particular case, we're speaking of Eric Wood from Regiments as well.
Yes, this was Eric Wood from Regiments before he left Regiments to form Trillian. So at that stage, this was 2007, 2007 to 2010. So AXA also has its own, I think, problems with regards to those legacy loans that were fixed. So I think the SIU should actually broaden their investigation, because it looks like where the treasurer, Mr. Ramosibudi, goes, regiment follows. So he was also the treasurer at Transnet when these interest rate swaps were transacted.
Mosilo, can you take us back to that moment when the negotiations were happening around the rate swap? Because you'd also been marketing around, looking at other financial institutions that were willing to come on board based on this deal, which was unprecedented, and how you were going to approach it. Why was it that Nedbank agreed and other financial services said no?
That's a question that I think Nedbank needs to answer, because we did approach ABSA and Standard Bank, and they didn't like the proposition where the bank will pay regiments instead of AXA or Transnet pay regiments, and then it reflects on their income statement. So when you now have the bank pay regiments, the intermediary, it's not shown on their bank statements. But what happens, it just increases their cost of borrowing. And I mean, think of 12 billion rand. And if it was fixed in 2015, I'm not sure if it was JIBAR, which is the Johannesburg interbank rate, or it was prime. With Transnet doesn't benefit when the interest rates go down, because they're fixed at a high rate. And the club loan was 12 years. So they are out of the money in terms of billions. I remember the former chairman, Bobo Molefe, was trying to negotiate to unbundle these transactions. And unfortunately, we are now at a stage where the SIU and Transnet want to set aside and nullify the profit that Nedbank makes. Nedbank, I see from their response, they said they only made approximately 92 million, and they dispute the 2.8 that is allegedly that they had profited for. But another thing that is quite unconventional is using an intermediary. Transnet and AXA and Eskom, most state-owned companies, they have a full educated expertise treasury, and they have relationships with the banks. So they can easily, for example, now we are at very high interest rates. So you do not need a regiment to negotiate an interest rate swap. It's a very simple derivative. Yeah. And then you would find that the Treasury had the capacity and the expertise to approach the banks if they feel that right now we're expecting rates to go down, so that they won't fix.
Yeah,
they'll be floating. Yes.
Mosilo, unfortunately, because we're running out of time, I just quickly want to go to this question because Transnet, of course, based on. We understood that Transnet was supposed to actually benefit out of the deal. Transnet didn't benefit out of the deal. From your recollection, how can you explain how Nedbank would have benefited from the deal specifically? Because Nedbank has issued a statement saying that they strongly will defend the litigation against it and will pursue its counterclaims against Transnet and others. They also claim that it wasn't their staff members that were involved and Nedbank didn't profit from the deal. What's your take on this?
Well, first of all, I think Transnet is out of the money. They're making losses because they're paying higher interest rates than the prevalent ones. But Nedbank did benefit from this, and they did make a profit. The main key person was Mr. Moss Brickman, And he was the go-to guy at Nedbank. He was the only guy, actually, at Nedbank that Eric Wood, the executive of Regiment / Trillian, he would basically transact all the interest rate swaps. Now, a bank makes profits, so obviously there's a margin for the banks to be made. A bank cannot transact without a profit. So I cannot comment on the amount of profits that Nedbank made, but I'm pretty sure that they did make profits from the interest rate swap.
Finally, what would you like to see happen now in conclusion?
Well, I mean, you're looking at Transnet now. The harbour is dysfunctional. So any money that was taken out of their fiscus should be returned. Just if it was unjust, and then the contract should be null and void, and all monies should be returned.
The last time you and I spoke, Mosilo, you spoke about how difficult it was for you to find a job after this whole entire deal, and also your involvement in it. Upon reflection, what would you like to say to South Africans right now? But also, what are you currently doing?
Yeah, it's been a rough ride. If you recall, I left Trillian in June 2016, and I was unemployed up until June 2018. So I was luckily I was employed at MTN Treasury for 2 years, and I as of today, it's my last day. I was the Minister of Water and Sanitation's special advisor, and so I'm effectively not working. So I would like to say to South Africa, my services are here. I would like to serve in the 7th administration or in the private sector. I think the time has come for us, for South Africans, to not look at whistleblowers as, spies and BMPs. We have a lot of expertise that the country can use.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity.
I really appreciate it. And let's see if anyone would be willing to hit that call, and also the protection, I guess, of whistleblowers as well. But thank you so much for making time for us. That is the former Trillian Financial Advisory CEO, author, and also whistleblower, Mothepu.